Survival should be fun. So this is an Altoids can, just the normal little tin that you get that you put the candies in. But in an emergency, what could you fit in here that might be useful? Now do be careful, it's not the tin that's important, but notice that this particular tin is shorter. So we're trying to find one about the size that would fit in your pocket. So here's a Newman's Own. But traditionally, you'll see people talk about the Altoids Survival Tin. Now, this is just a brain exercise. What would you want in your pocket in the event of an emergency? Now, I'm going to deconstruct mine so you can see what I've got inside. I'm going to think outside of the dodecahedron, just a more complicated symbol. This is my Altoids tin, and you'll notice that I am thinking outside of the tin. This is a woman's hair ribbon. I found these to be extremely good, and they hold their elasticity very well over time. Now you'll notice that I've put mine inside of a plastic bag. One of the most important things you're going to have during an emergency is the need for water. So reaching into my bag, you'll discover that it is a large, sealable water container. Notice again another woman's hair ribbon. These come in very useful when attaching things to it. Now around the outside of my tin, I specifically have, because I have arthritis, I have an ACE bandage. Now these can come in good in a lot of situations, so be sure to keep these if you've got them. I've gotten these from doctor's offices in past years. They can be reused as nice wraps. So let's take this off of my tin, and now we're getting down to the tin itself. But wait, there's more. Another woman's hair ribbon, but this is a wire cutting saw. Now some of them are very inexpensive, some of them don't hold up very well, but the principle is really a good idea. If I needed to cut a large branch, I've got these two things, and I can put those in my fingers and pull back and forth and saw through. So that's part of the kit. Next comes duct tape. Now, I'm getting more and more convinced that duct tape may be the answer to even part of our first aid needs. So I'm going to take off this piece. It's about 3 feet in length, and we'll keep removing it. One other little thing I want you to notice as I get near the end of unwrapping the duct tape from this, and there's so many wonderful things you can do with duct tape. It makes bandages, can make things to seal things with. Torn pants can be repaired with this type of thing. But you'll notice that I did reinforce the seam all along the edge of my Altoid tin. When you put a lot in, those seams can tend to pop loose. So inside, here's what we've got. We might as well start with a little fishing weight that kind of popped out on one side. Here's a dental pick. You do have to remember that you're going to want to take care of your teeth, even in an outdoor situation. When you're eating, things can get stuck inside. Here's a clip that I could use for different things. For example, a tripwire. If I was needing to get some sleep, I would that way be alerted if somebody were approaching me. That's also a small drink packet that could make water a little bit more bearable. Here's a small lighter, and that's one of the key things that you've got to remember. All water should be boiled, so you have to have a way to light a fire. Speaking of lighting a fire, there are even more matches inside of this. So let me open up this little kit. Whoops, I dropped part of it. And you'll see that this is actually dental floss. Now that's good because it's thick. It's a very hard material that will take a lot of strain. So in a situation where I needed, for example, emergency surgery, that could actually be used to sew me up. And of course, the obvious. Now inside of this is the striker from a match pack, and I've just taken it apart. Put inside a few matches. They're only good in really ideal situations, so be sure to use your matches wisely. A lighter might be better in a very windy scenario, for example. But you'll notice as I'm peeling out the matches, I'd come down to, hidden in between, there are needles. And the reason I've got needles in here is for what I mentioned a few minutes ago. First off, they make good dental picks if I have to use that as a backup. But I do have my tool with me. And more importantly, in an emergency surgery situation, I've got needles. I could repair clothing. I could do various things like make these into fish hooks if I had to. Now I've got the rest of the can here, and one of the things we discover is this straw. And the straw is sealed on both ends, and the reason is I took the other half of the straw and I put cotton inside. Now where do I get cotton? These are out of vitamin pills and things like that. So I take this cotton and I rub petroleum jelly on it, and then I stuff it down inside of the straw. And very carefully I seal up the end. Now, why? That fits inside of the Altoids tin, and this is a great fire starter. By the way, chapstick and things like that work just as well. Now, inside of this little package are a few things, so I want to deal with some other stuff. Here is some actual thread, some sewing thread, and I've wrapped it around an alcohol swab. So that's inside of here. Here's a paper clip, can be used again for tripwires and things like that. Since I'm going to be outside for quite a while, might be wise if I had some sunscreen. So that's what I've got right here. Some 30 proof sunscreen could help me out in a very bad heat and lighting solar situation. This is just a piece of aluminum foil. But remember, in an emergency, I need to boil water. So this is not the ideal material, but if I've got to boil water and I've got to do it quickly, here is a possibility. Now it keeps on unfolding. This is actually fairly big. You'd be surprised how much this turns out to be, but it kind of sticks together after it's been in here a while. So I'll unfold another section just so you can begin to get a sense of the size of this thing. And by the way, there are still more thicknesses to go. But I could put the water down in here. And again, I don't particularly like the idea of drinking water boiled in aluminum. But in an emergency, I'd rather have water than no water. And bad water can kill you. So down at the bottom of our tin is a couple of bandages and a couple of more items in a small container. And here is a very large bandage. Below that, we also see a Q-tip. We have a couple of toothpicks, remember dental hygiene, and a couple of more clips. Again, things like that for setting up traps for animals and so forth. Now, inside of this is water purification pills. And I've got some survival tips, particularly about first aid, inside of here to kind of protect them. Inside of this is, I'm just going to open it up and show you. Here's some more things that I've put inside of straws to protect them. And inside of here is the instructions for the water purification. And finally, inside of this little container, I've got a dust mask and I've got earplugs. Now, why would those be important? Well, first off, they're all crushed up. If they didn't unfold, and I think they will naturally over time, it's a type of material that can be compressed and brought open, I could actually just fold these up and put them into my ears. But in a situation where I'm trying to get some sleep, cutting down on that noise could be very helpful. Now, I noticed in 9/11 and some of the other major catastrophes that dust and smoke was a real problem. So I included a mask. And inside of this, here's a rubber band. And what this last object is it's a tea bag. Again, I'm going to be boiling water. I want to try to give it some refreshing taste. That's all I have in my kit, but if you look back, it's really quite a few objects and some very, very impressive amounts of material that you can carry in a very small amount of space. So, think about what would you like in your survival tin.